Fans of Spider-Man have lived vicariously through Peter Parker since the 1960s. The appeal of the character is primarily rooted in being a regular guy with regular guy problems who just got bit by a radioactive spider, and now he does whatever a spider can. Notably, paying bills and having stable relationships are not things spiders are well known for. And while Peter has had a number of different jobs throughout the years, semi-professional student, photographer, inventor, scientist, CEO, then scientist again, Peter has had, for a time, one of the storied, major, stable romances in comic history. And then it was gone. Over the last 20 years, Peter and his once wife, Mary Jane Watson Parker, they've been living apart with a sort of will they, won't they cloud hanging over their heads. Mostly, they won't. Why can't Peter be happy? Why can't Mary Jane and him be together again? Marvel editorial is basically the initial answer, but it's more complicated than that, with the concern that a married Peter somehow alienates younger readers. Well, Peter Parker does not have a problem being happy. He can't be happy. That's the crux of the character. Parker luck is a thing. He has problems. He's got to have them. But being married? Sure. Maybe. Why not? But if that's off the table, then what the hell is Marvel doing with MJ anyway? How do you settle the problem of fans wanting something that Marvel decided won't happen? Peter Parker doesn't have a relationship problem. Spider-Man has a Mary Jane problem. I'm Dan Umpton, and this is the Doomcast. Okay, first off, do me a favor, hit subscribe and the bell. I make about one of these videos a week. They are all great, so please don't miss even one. Now, before you crucify me in the comments, which I guess go ahead, but leave a comment if you like this as well. I'm pro-marriage here. I'm pro-spider marriage. I feel like he should be thwipping MJ every night, and she should thwip out a couple of kids, and they can have precocious red-headed little children like the Fantastic Four have precocious and super intelligent blonde kids. But that's, let's just say that we presume that that is not going to happen. There has to be a reason. If they don't create a reason why they aren't together, then MJ is just a problem. Because heretofore, she's been defined as a character only in relationship to Peter Parker and Spider-Man. And without a relationship with Peter Parker or Spider-Man, she's not even useless as a plot device. She's just full-on hurdle for readership. So as a result, you have a few choices of what you can do from that point with MJ. So here we go. First and foremost, you have to extricate her almost entirely from the Spider-Man family of characters. Because if she's not actually going to be able to go back to being Peter Parker's spouse, you have to define her on her own terms, period. Al Ewing is laying the groundwork for that very thing in Venom. But I think that they need to go a little bit further. Pull her completely out of Venom, another character inextricably connected to Peter anyway, and define her entirely on her own. Have her move to the West Coast. I don't know. Have her exposed to Terrigen Mist, find out that she's been an Inhuman the entire time, put her in Attilan, make her an Inhuman ambassador to Arakko. Just put layers and layers of story between her and Peter that make it impossible for them to get together. Get her out of Spider-Man books, if she can't be Peter's wife, just to end the controversy. The problem is, moving her farther away than, say, a Venom book has a pretty super high potential of pissing off other readers and annoying them with the character. Basically, if you completely disconnect her, she kind of becomes boring because that really is where she's defined. If those two options are off the table, you have to take a solid turn, something from which there's no real return. So the second option is maybe a little bit more nefarious, potentially divisive as well. You just kill her. You just kill Mary Jane off. Now, Marvel probably can't just say, well, Mary Jane was unfortunately killed on the way back to her home planet, because not only does that summary execution of a character off camera not work at all, it'd be meaningless. I guess it solves the problem, but not really. Potentially better scenario, still flawed, but better. Bring them closer, maybe almost back together temporarily. Peter is happy again, romance is blossoming, things are looking up. Suddenly MJ says, Peter, I'm pregnant. Now they want to get married, Norman, who's now newly reformed, remember he's kind of Spider-Man right now in New York, wants to be the godfather to their child. Peter agrees they're about to get married when, lo and behold, at the altar, Norman's snapped again and he's become the Green Goblin. He wrests MJ from the altar, taunts Peter to follow him, and this time, instead of throwing Peter's beloved right off of a bridge, he just swings her in front of an oncoming 7 train at the Bronx, or straps a pumpkin bomb to her, just lets her explode in midair. Something irreversible and horrible. Don't like that? Neither do I. It's a practice that's come to be known as fridging, which is shorthand for the use of a death of a female character, just to be a plot device in the development of a male character. Gail Simone coined this in response to Ron Mars writing the death of Alexandria DeWitt in Kyle Rayner, the Green Lantern run that he did. And she pointed out other examples of this: the death of Gwen Stacy, the death of Mariko, Wolverine, the death of Sue Dibney. Heck, Gale kind of even did it recently with Rogue and Unbreakable X-Men. Granted, she turned her into a stone statue, but just to develop the Age of Revelation gambit. Anyway, I don't think that killing Mary Jane off would be received very well by almost anyone. Okay, working with the parameters we have. We can't marry Mary Jane off. We can't kill Mary Jane. We can't do that. We can't just ignore her. We also can't send her away. So what do? Remember how I mentioned the death of Sue Dibney. In Identity Crisis, Jean Loring snapped and went from the spouse of Ray Palmer, then the Atom, to a villain and ended up becoming a legitimate villain in her own right. Another host for Eclipso. So some of you are way ahead of me here. Same scenario. Peter and Mary Jane become close. Once again, they discover MJ is pregnant. Norman wants to be godfather to the baby. However, the baby's health doesn't seem to be the very best, in an irregular heartbeat and other complications from what they fear might be Peter's spider powers affecting the baby. They carry on, hopeful for a healthy child. Hey, maybe it'll be a mutant. Maybe it'll have powers. Who knows? But as Norman begins working on the wedding plans with Peter, he believes he can aid them. He secretly begins augmenting his original goblin formula, and one he believes that might provide neonatal resilience and maybe cancel out the complications from Peter's powers. And of course, he surreptitiously injects MJ with the formula at the rehearsal dinner. There at the wedding, Peter waits at the altar, fearing the worst might have happened. How did he end up beating Mary Jane to the wedding, even after the run-in with insert whichever villain here? How did this stained glass window above me just burst open? Now, enter Mary Jane, the new Green Goblin. They fight. Peter pulls punches, knowing he could potentially hurt their baby, and tries to figure out ways to bring Mary Jane back, but she flees and retreats, goes into labor, and gives birth to a son. Eventually, maybe they name him Ben. He has both spider and goblin powers. Maybe something like that. Give her the Jean Loring heel turn. Make her essentially a permanent villain with a new central antagonist. Spider Baby Mama. Don't name her that. But basically, Peter dealing with joint custody with a crazy ex who wants to murder him, that's real problems. And Peter is a real problems guy. All while trying to be a decent dad and raise his son to be a good person and hero, despite the urge that he may have to become a villain also. That's... Obviously, it doesn't have to happen that way, but of the 3 options, a heel turn for Mary Jane might be the way to go. Honestly, a character-defining heel turn into one of the most intense and important Spider-Man villains might be the best course if they're not just gonna let Peter and Mary Jane get married again. And let's be honest, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But we might get villain Mary Jane, and that would probably be for the best. Thanks for watching. This has been the Doomcast. We'll see you again next week. Peace. Like the idea? Don't like the idea? Do you have an alternate idea that isn't them getting married? Let me know in the comments. Thanks. Peace.